Hi, this is Bob, and a lot of times I'm working on electronic things here on the electronic workbench, but my Accurite weather station started acting up. The water measuring device stopped working, and I looked out at it out there in the backyard. It's about 10 feet up on a piece of pipe stuck in the ground, and it was looking pretty sad out there. It hadn't been cleaned or touched for over a year. So I thought, well, I'll take it down and I'll put some new batteries in and I'll clean it up and all that. Well, I took it down, and when I took it down, I flipped the pipe around. I had it on a piece of pipe. The piece of pipe is right here. It's just a short piece. This goes into the taller piece of pipe so that it just slips in there and holds the weather station in place. I also put a little piece of stiff wire through a couple of holes that keeps this pipe here from rotating. There's the hole right there. Anyhow, where I had difficulty was figuring out how to take the bottom off. I had never taken it off before. So I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked on the internet, different things here and there and everywhere. Finally I found one website, but I had to listen and watch for quite a while before I found out how to take the bottom off. Oh my golly. So I got to looking at it here. There's only 4 screws you have to take off to take the bottom off. And I wanted to show you what I did to this to get it working again. First of all, when I took it off, I had it on this short pipe, which I've showed you already. And when I took it off, I swung the pipe around. It had been raining very heavily, and we were concerned that we did not get any readings on the rain gauge. So I took this pipe off, just pulled it off the top with the weather station on it, and I just proceeded to go into the house. And as I went, I just had a hold of the pipe and I just turned it down. Well, when I turned it down, there was water in this little pipe, and it ran into this hole here on the weather station. Right down here you can see that's where the pipe goes in, right down there, and it had water, and the water ran inside the workings of the weather station. Okay, so now I've got this setting here with it loose so that I can show you how to take it apart. And I had marked it here. See where it says OK right here? There's a screw down in there. I used this screwdriver. I didn't want to use a big screwdriver. Use a big screwdriver when you tighten them up, and you can strip the plastic threads, and then you got to get different screw. It's a mess. Anyhow, so use a little pocket screwdriver like this that you can get in there and take those apart and put them back together without tearing them up. You will also notice that I wrote on here, this is upside down, but it says no, no. These 2 here are adjustments. You don't want to turn those unless you're adjusting the weather station, and you know how to do that. And to be very honest, I do not. So anyhow, you loosen these 2 up here, and I remember I talked about stripping the screws. If you tighten them too tightly, you may notice there's a bigger screw right here at this location right there. That's because I tightened that one up too tight with a big screwdriver and stripped it. So I had to put a bigger screw in there, which I did, which worked. But you can't do that with these in the holes here, because you don't have room for a big screw to fit down in there. All right, so anyways, so I got it in the house here, and I took these out after I finally figured out that there was a screw up in here. You notice I got it written on here. It says OK. That means OK, take that screw out. And there's a screw up in there. Okay, I took that one out, took this one out, took that one out, took this one out back here. There's 4 screws in this unit underneath. One here, one here, one here, and one down in the big hole for the pipe. So you take those out, and this bottom comes right off like that. Then once you get the bottom off, like I did, I got that bottom off and I found out that there's a lot of water in here. There was water up in this part up here. There's water down here. So when I flipped that thing upside down with the pipe on it, the short pipe dumped water down into there, and oh boy, my weather station stopped working. So what do I do? Well, the first thing I did was take out the batteries. I got some new batteries. I recommend use of the batteries that are the lithium cells. I use the Energizer Ultimate Lithium batteries. I got no connection with those people, but I like the batteries. Anyhow, and another thing I do when I put the batteries in, and when I'm working on these things like this, I put some silicone grease. You can buy silicone grease for brakes for cars. It's very thin grease and it is clear. And you just take a little on your finger, wipe it on the base of the battery, wipe it on the top of the battery on the little button up here, and a little bit on back here, and that then acts as a weather barrier when you snap them into the clips. And a lot of people I've had several guys tell me, well, that grease is an insulator. Yes, it is. And it's also a very good dielectric product. It keeps the water out. So anything that makes a solid contact with this metal part of the battery, top or bottom, will displace the grease that you put on there, and you get a good contact, and the grease then remains and prevents water from getting in the future. And you will find if you put that on your batteries like that, that your battery holders in your devices will not be all corroded when you go to take the batteries out. I suppose it's possible if you leave the batteries in there for 5 years or something, you're going to have a problem. But anyhow, I think that it increases the life of the product, which in this case is the weather station, and also provides for a better contact. So I wanted to show you that. And I put, if you can see it, I put a little bit of silicone grease over that contact right there. That's just a soldered contact on the board, but I did notice a little bit of a green tint to it, indicating that a tiny bit of corrosion going on there. I didn't want that to get worse, so I put a little glob of the silicone grease on my finger and dabbed it on there. And then this plug here, this just comes out like this. You wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, boom, out it comes. And there you see the little tiny holes. I just put some of that silicone grease on my finger and I wiped it down in the holes. Why did I do that? The same thing. It keeps out moisture. And it just snaps back in together like that. So, anyhow, this did not work then after I got all that water in there. So what do I do about that? Well, I set it up on here like you see. You may notice this is up high. This is on a box. See that? That's my workbench. I've got that on a box. Well, what did I do that for? Well, I got to tell you, if I get a stool or a chair and I sit at this workbench, then I'm bent over at quite a tight bend working on this workbench here, down in, let's see, down in this area down here where the workbench actually is, down in there. And so I put that box there with another piece of cardboard on top so that I can stand up and work on this. And why do I do that? Because when I'm working on things on this workbench and I'm sitting on a stool, it causes me to bend over at a sharp angle, and that causes acid reflux in my system, which is not much fun. So I have found that by standing and working on a box like this, raised up, that I don't have that problem. I like to pass these things on to other people and to help other people. That's the reason I make these videos. I don't do it to make money or anything like that. This box is 15 inches tall off of the standard workbench. Okay, so how do we get the water out of there? All right, let's see about that. Now I wanted to tell you that when you take this this apart, take those 4 screws out that I showed you, and you take this off, you will find this thing on there. It just sits on there. That's all it does. So you just take that, pull it off. All right, then you get to the circuit board, and circuit boards do not like water. So that's where my mistake was. I got water in the circuit board, and I thought, oh man, I hope I didn't do it permanent damage. So, how do I get the water out? Well, I tried blowing it out. I've got here a little blower. It's an inflation device for a Coleman air mattress. Here it is, right here. I blew a lot of the water out with this thing. This thing is very noisy. I haven't got the power turned on for the workbench. How about that? So anyhow, I blew all the water out as much as I could with the Coleman air mattress inflator. And I really like having that little Coleman air mattress inflator here on the workbench. I've got a big nail over here on the side, and I just hang it on the nail in the handle there. And it's really nice to have an air compressor that you can use to blow things out as you're working with electronics and all. And that little Coleman air mattress inflator really blasts out the air and works just great for that, and you don't have to have a big air compressor sitting here and the hoses and all that stuff. So I thought I'd mention that too. There's a lot of you guys out there doing the same kind of tinkering with electronics and things like I'm doing. Anyways, so here we have this weather station, and you got water on the circuit board and various things. I cleaned it as much as I could with the Coleman air blower here for air mattresses. I got a lot of it out, but it still didn't work. Oh boy, what am I going to do now? Well, I figured out that this circuit board probably had gotten so much water on it that there was water underneath parts and things in there that I couldn't get out with that blower. So what do? Well, what I did was I took this little fan I have here. Now I have this little fan right here. I have this little fan right here sitting over on the corner here, blowing across the work surface. And the reason I have that is because that blows the soldering fumes away from me, so I'm not breathing them in while I work. So I just moved this little fan over here and set it up to blow onto the circuit board and all. And I also arranged the other half here, which had some water in it, sitting close by, and was blowing this air through it all. And I left it set here for 4 hours, and it is dry. So what happened? Well, I'll tell you, when I came down here to get it then, I've still got the batteries in there. I'd cleaned that out and put fresh batteries in, put my silicone grease on the batteries like I showed you, and put this together. I found out that this unit here is working. It's separated from this up here, so it won't show airspeed, but it's working. It started reading the wind direction, and this works too. I flipped it back and forth, and I noticed it was reading the rain gauge was working. So anyhow, and I've got the other part right over here, sitting right there so that I can keep track. And I looked over at it after I was working on that, and after it had set for 4 hours with a little fan blowing on it, I found out, hey, it's operating just like it should, because the numbers all came on, the temperature and everything. And then I flipped around the wind direction indicator vane on the weather station itself, and by golly, it changed. Now that updates like every 3 minutes or something. So I gotta tell you, if you're working on one of these, Don't expect readings to go changing zip, zip, zip on the screen, because they won't. They'll blink and change like every 3 minutes. So you got to wait for it. Anyhow, everything started working. I wanted to show you how to get these bottom off here by taking off these 4 screws. You can see where they go now. One goes here, one goes here, one goes here, and one goes over here. So anyhow, that was what I wanted to show. I had difficulty finding out just how to get the screws out to get the thing apart, and then what needed to be cleaned. I did a really good job of cleaning inside. I did not do a super job cleaning outside. You can see the outside. That would be a lot of work, and I looked at it and I thought, when I saw it, I thought, Bob, what could happen easily is you could go to scrubbing all this outside and you're going to break one of these plastic parts. It's happened before with other things. So I decided I needed to clean it inside, get it working good, and it's going back out in the garden, so there's no problem with it looking a little bit dirty. Nobody's going to climb up the pole and look at it. Anyhow, that's it. I just wanted to show you what I did to get this going again, and I think the average guy can take the bottom off of there and clean it out and blow the water out, and just take a small fan, let it sit on there for 2 or 3 hours if you suspect it has water in it. And if it's not working at all, it may just have water in it, because once this was dried out, it started working again. No problem. And the only thing I did to dry it out was to take these 2 parts and blow that little fan, have that little fan blow air over it for about 4 hours. That's it, guys. Just wishing you all well. Everybody stay healthy.